Well, Cliff, thanks for joining us. There's a lot of things going on in the Middle East right now. One of the things that's happening is a lot of turmoil in Turkey. And Erdogan is trying to suppress this sort of popular revolt. What's your thoughts about that right now and what's happening in Turkey?
Well, it's very interesting, and in some ways it's surprising. Erdogan, for a long time, as you know, has backed away from the concept of Turkey at its origination in almost 100 years ago. And that was that Turkey would be a secular state, there'd be a clear differentiation, separation of mosque and state. He is moving in an Islamist direction. He looks at the Muslim Brotherhood and what it's doing in places like Egypt, and he approves of it.
Now a lot of people have compared this to the Arab Spring. Do you think there's any danger of the overthrow of the Erdogan government, or is this just something that he's going to have to deal with and suppress?
I think it can be called a sort of Turkish expression of the Arab Spring in that it represents deep felt and long hidden dissatisfaction. Is Erdogan in danger? Look, probably not, but the fact of the matter is people like you and me and political scientists and intelligence analysts, they never know. I think he's very tough. I think he's been harmed and weakened by this domestically and internationally, but I would be surprised, not astonished, but surprised to see this spiral into a full-scale revolution.
Another issue bigger than that probably is the Syrian civil war. And Austrian peacekeepers have pulled out of the border between Israel and Syria. And you were just on the border as well as being in Jordan as well.
Yes, there's a full-blown civil war taking place in Syria. 70, 80,000 people have been killed. From a humanitarian perspective, terrible and tragic. The fact of the matter is that there's been a big change very recently. It was seen as inevitable and perhaps imminent that Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian dictator, would fall. Now he's back on the offensive. Right. He's taken a key strategic city. And no one's saying he's necessarily going to win, but he's certainly not losing. Mm-hmm. What we have to look at are the possible outcomes. There are bad outcomes and there are worse outcomes. We need the wisdom to distinguish between the two.
And maybe one of the biggest problems right now is the Iran situation. And let me just play a clip from Yuval Steinitz. He did a press conference earlier this week concerning Iran's arsenal that they're preparing.
We are speaking about an historical game changer. It's going to change the world. It's going to create a dangerous new world, totally different than today. It's going to have terrible, dramatic effect, not just on the Middle East and Israel, but also on Europe and the United States and beyond.
How serious is this infrastructure that Iran is building, and what is the West or the U.S. doing or not doing?
It's extraordinarily serious. Iran represents the most important strategic threat to the United States. That means Iran seeks to diminish the United States, destroy its influence in the Middle East and as much of its influence everywhere as it can. Possibility that the Iranian regime is serious when it says it wants to exterminate the Israelis, actually create another Holocaust, has to be taken very, very seriously. If the Iranians get these weapons and begin to build them, it'll be a hinge moment in history, and it'll make it a lot more likely that the 21st century will end up bloodier than the 20th century. So what are we doing about this? Well, not enough is the simple answer. Mm-hmm. Sanctions, thanks to Congress, and there's a bipartisan consensus in Congress that we should have the toughest possible sanctions, really economic warfare. Mm-hmm. We're getting to dangerous territory. We probably have less than a year. The Israelis are looking at their options and capabilities. If they can stop Iran, they will. We don't know if they can.
Are you confident the Obama administration has the political will to stop Iran?
I'm not confident. I think that there are many advisors I don't know that President Obama has made up his mind. I think there are signs he hasn't entirely, but he may have. No way for me to know that. But many advisors are saying, look, we contained the Soviet Union for 70 years. We contained it after it became a nuclear power in the early 1950s. We can contain a nuclear Iran as well with deterrence and doctrines like mutually assured destruction. They hit us, we hit them, they hit Israel, Israel hits them. I think that's folly. I think that's crazy. I spent a lot of time in the Soviet Union. The regime was evil. Communism is evil, but they were very rational. Here you're talking about people who have the mentality of perhaps of suicide bombers, where they understand that Israel is a one-bomb country. One nuclear weapon exploded here could destroy everything, again, a Holocaust. One in Iran, which they see as a small part of the greater Muslim world. That's not a big price to pay. So this is an extraordinarily dangerous moment we face, and most of all, the Israelis face.
Well, I appreciate your perspective, Cliff, and glad to see you here in Jerusalem. Hope you come back.
It's great to be with you guys here in Jerusalem.